So we are going to have a look at the Afghan Sun Introduction to a Case Study. This video will take you through the basics of the case study and a selection of linked questions for Chapter 1. Some subsequent videos posted over the next couple of days will remind you of potential questions for Chapters 2 through to 5. So what's going on with the Afghan Sun case study? First of all, to get to know the owner. The owner is Sue Chen Lin, who her friends know as Sue. She's a successful businesswoman, and her luxury holiday company, High End Holidays, has proved profitable. She's now wealthy enough to retire. However, she enjoys challenges and wants to give back to society, which has caused her to look for new opportunities. Sue considers herself to be a laissez-faire leader. She empowers her employees, and she likes to step back from day-to-day decision-making, preferring to trust her managers. This is Sue, the owner of the business. The opportunity of the business. Afghan Sun would be set up as a privately limited company which will operate as a social enterprise. The business is based upon a successful model that Sue saw whilst on a trip to Bangladesh. This model was called AK Bank and is based upon a real-life example. The main business aims to provide the opportunity for cheap electricity to the Afghan people by selling them solar power systems to use in their homes. The Afghan people would be offered microfinance from AK Bank to purchase these solar power systems. Now, the microfinance would obviously be repaid. It is a type of loan. The interest rate is relatively high, but because, of course, the actual amount of money being borrowed is so small, the repayment figures may appear small when calculated. The management team. Sue currently has a team of volunteers from her other business, HH, who are helping to set up Afghan Sun. So these people are obviously believing in the mission and the vision of the organisation and want to participate, and so they have an intrinsic motivation. Volunteers are intrinsically motivated. But Sue also has two members of staff currently, David and Salima. David has been recruited from HH, from the other business. He is an Afghan national and he has experience in marketing. So he's been currently working in the marketing department of the holiday company. Salima has been appointed from externally. She's also an Afghan national and has got experience as a productions manager for another company. Sue will need two more senior managers, and she's going to select those from either promoting junior employees from HH or by appointing HH staff who have already got management experience. So, Afghanistan and the country. Afghanistan is a country badly damaged by years of war. The population is around 34 million. Only 38.2% of the population over the age of 15 are literate. If we were to count the entire population, it's about 15%, but obviously we don't necessarily anticipate that the children would be literate in the first place. So when we consider people over the age of 15, it is only about 38.2% of the population. The country is ranked amongst the worst in the world for the ease of doing business. This is due to lots of external social factors and political factors that we'll look at shortly. Only 43% of the total population currently has access to electricity, and most of those people live in cities. So Sue's target area will be individuals who are not living in those cities and who are currently without electricity. The majority of people without electricity live in rural areas that often have poor infrastructure, no road links, etc., like the Hindu Kush mountain range over here in the northeast of the country, bordering Tajikistan. So with the summary of the case study, let's have a look at the links to our Chapter 1. In the links to Chapter 1, we have the following main 6 points. Chapter 1.1, Reasons for Starting Up a Business, which you can find on page 7 of the Paul Hoang textbook. 1.2, For-Profit Social Enterprise, which is on page 22 of the Paul Hoang textbook. 1.3, Vision and Mission Statements, page 29. 1.3, Aims, Objectives, Strategies and Tactics, page 31. 1.5, external environment. That's quite a big one because we are expecting some kind of a steeple analysis, even if it doesn't use the word steeple, but looking at the external factors impacting this organisation or impacting the decision on the location of their production facility. Review this. It starts on page 55, but the chapter looks at all of the different types of social, technological, political, ethical, environmental, etc. So go through all of those sections in that chapter. And 1.6, I've used economies of scale as another example here because this talks about the benefits of using perhaps an outsourcing company who can achieve economies of scale in their purchasing, which at the moment Afghan Sun cannot. So these are the main summary areas that I've selected from chapter 1. So let's have a look at some questions. So chapter 1.1, reasons for starting up a business, which you can find on page 7. The section from the case study is line 5. Sue, as her friends know her, has made more than enough money to keep her comfortable for the rest of her life, but she still wants new challenges. She's looking for a completely new project that will allow her to give back to society. Question. With reference to Sue, outline one possible reason for starting a business. Now I suggest you pause now, have a think, put some bullet points down, or actually write a response. You're looking for something in the region of 4 marks for this. The response will be shared with you in a moment. Okay, so if you've had a go yourself, having paused the video, now let's have a look at a sample response to that question. The reasons for starting a business include for earnings, for transference or inheritance, for autonomy and security. In Sue's case, she is starting a business because she enjoys the challenge, line 6, and because she's made wealth or earnings from her first business and sees this challenge as a new opportunity to give back to society. Challenges in business often give individuals the drive to perform and personal satisfaction. Now, if we wanted to, we could elaborate this and go on to talk about the fact that these challenges are often an example of the opportunity to achieve mastery, which is something that Daniel Pink states is one of the main motivators. Mastery, autonomy and purpose. Remember, mastery being something whereby you have the opportunity to become the best at something or become excellent at something through training and through increasing levels of challenge. Let's have a look at the next one. 1.2. For social enterprises. And the quote is, she set up a social enterprise called Afghan Sun, which operates as a private limited company, from line 18. And the question, with reference to AS, describe the purpose of a social enterprise. Again, pause the video, have a go yourself, and then we'll have a look at the solution. Okay, so the model answer for this is a definition of social enterprises first. Social enterprises are revenue-generating businesses with social objectives at the core of their operations. Whilst commercial for-profit businesses strive to return a profit for their owners, social enterprises strive to return a surplus for social gain. Sue has identified that providing the opportunity for electricity to the people of Afghanistan through solar power systems would bring great benefits to the local community. Line 14. Her main objectives focus on keeping costs of production low to provide these units at the cheapest possible price. The purpose of a social enterprise like AS is not to generate profitable returns for investors, but rather to cover the costs sustainably and reinvest any profits to continue to grow the project. Again, you might be able to elaborate this kind of question. This question might ask you, with reference to AS, to describe the purpose of a social enterprise and the benefits of establishing as a privately limited company. Well, as a privately limited company, of course, Sue has the opportunity to trade without the liability, the financial liability of things going wrong. She also has the opportunity to sell shares, which can generate sources of finance for her organisation. So there are several opportunities within this context that I suggest you have a read through on page 22 of the Paul Huang textbook. So next one is 1.3, vision and mission statements. So looking at line 36 of the textbook, of the case study, Managers, both at HH and AS, say they are inspired by Sue and have a clear understanding of her mission and share it. Question: with reference to AS, discuss the importance of a mission statement. Again, I'll pause and allow you to put some notes down. Okay, so if you've paused the video and already put your notes down, let's have a look at some solutions. A mission statement is a simple declaration of the underlying purpose of an organisation's existence and its core values. Unlike objectives, a mission statement does not have a set time frame and tends to be qualitative rather than quantitative. Mission statements are used in guiding and supporting all stakeholders, especially staff, in understanding the purpose of the organisation. This is particularly important for a business like AS, where the main purpose is not profit making, but rather a social benefit. Sue needs to use the mission of her company in her recruitment process to ensure that her future employees share her mission and are supportive of the objectives of the organisation. And again, you could go on to elaborate this. It all depends upon the number of marks available. The solutions I'm giving you here are 4 at most, possibly 6 for some of the larger statements. If you've got an 8 or a 10 mark question, it's going to ask you to bring in more elements to discuss here. You could be talking about recruitment methods, you could be talking about interview questions, you could be talking about the motivation of the staff and staff feeling that they have purpose being again linked to Daniel Pink's drive theory as a motivator, and purpose can be linked entirely to the mission of the company, and if staff feel that they are part of that mission, then they feel that they have a purpose. So we have different opportunities of how to elaborate. Let's have a look at another 1.3. Aims, objectives, strategies and tactics. Sue thinks it's very important she maintains a leadership role for both HH and AS. However, she empowers her managers to make day-to-day decisions, including organising resources, directing staff, coordinating and taking tactical decisions. With reference to AS, differentiate between strategic decisions and tactical decisions. Now, we have done this question, so it's just another opportunity to reword it, rephrase it. So pause, see what you can recall from what we did in class, write down your notes, and then come back and have a look. Okay, so from page 31, we can identify our definitions of strategic and tactical decisions. A strategic decision contributes to more long-term and company-wide objectives, whereas tactical decisions contribute short-term, department-specific and SMART objectives. In the context of AS, Sue participates in strategic decision-making as part of her role as a leader, which is in line 28. But she delegates the tactical decisions to her managers, whom she empowers to make day-to-day decisions. An example of a strategic decision for Sue would be the choice to set up as a privately limited company, line 18. This was a company-wide decision which will enable them to earn profits to reinvest and eventually become sustainable. A tactical decision, on the other hand, will be the choice of where to locate the production facility, which has been delegated to Salima, or the choice of which pricing strategy to use, which David will decide. So you're identifying the fact that one is company-wide and one is just department-specific. Once you have your department-specific, you can pull out your examples from the case study. Notice that I am using line quotes to show where I'm pulling specific information out of. This is not necessary for every example, but it is useful to point out to the examiner that you are quoting from the case study. Okay, so moving on to 1.5, the external environment. Using relevant steeple headings, identify main external factors which impact Afghansun considering the case study and additional materials provided. Now obviously in the exam you will have additional materials. Those additional materials will be another couple of pages of notes, perhaps a news broadcast or some statistics, some more financial data, we don't know. It's quite possible that you might be asked to develop some kind of a steeple analysis of Afghansun's position. So I've produced here for you a steeple analysis considering the social, the technological, the economic and the political factors that impact their decision to locate in Afghanistan. So some social factors. Afghanistan is a mainly Islamic country. There are local distrust and fear of international agencies. There is tribal power structures where warlords and terrorist groups still occupy many rural parts of the country. There is a readiness to use force to settle disputes, which poses potential risk to things like the transport and the distribution channels. There is limited equality and influence for women. This could cause problems for certain employees or even for recruitment. There's limited education opportunities, so again, recruitment problems, possibly training problems. Low literacy rates, especially amongst the rural populations and again amongst women. This can cause problems in all kinds of issues, from training and opportunities of employment, but also for the opportunity to advertise and to sell the product. Let's have a look at the technological factors. With certain improvements in technology, the demand for electricity is growing, so that's a positive for Afghanistan. Solar cells are falling in price worldwide and generally from those mass producers. Again, if Afghanistan was to take advantage of this, this could be a benefit. Solar cells are increasing in efficiency. They are becoming more powerful and can produce more energy per unit. The production technology is improving. And again, this is if Afghanistan chooses to take advantage of this. This is things like the automation and the robotics to make the production systems more efficient and less costly per unit. There are limited telecommunications infrastructures in Afghanistan, things like phones and internet. This might cause problems in doing business and communicating with one another. However, complementary technologies have improved, like battery storage and LED lighting. So LED lighting takes up much less energy and at the same time can provide a really useful source of light for homesteads and can be powered by these solar powers. And battery storage means that we can actually charge these batteries and keep the electricity in storage for a certain amount of time, meaning that it can be used at night and not just whilst the sun is shining. Research and development also has been a big technological improvement. There are lots of research and development into solar panels and solar systems, solar technology at the moment. For example, the world's largest solar manufacturer has over 980 patents, so 980 different technological copyrights for their technology. So there's lots of developments in this area. Let's have a look at the economic factors. Afghanistan is one of the least economically developed countries in the world. It's got a very poor ease of doing business ranking. There are insecurities which prevent private investment at curtail, which means to narrow the opportunities for private investment and consumer demand because of political insecurity, because of economic insecurity. Growth remains principally driven by agriculture, so the country is mainly based upon a primary infrastructure, a primary sector employment opportunity, which doesn't link well to this this type of social enterprise. Poverty has actually increased in the country over the past decade, mainly because of the war. The currency is fluctuating constantly, and it has seen a depreciation in value since the war broke out. There is poor infrastructure, especially limited access to power and transportation, including mainly in the rural areas, but it is prevalent throughout the country. The commercial banking system provides limited commercial financing, so there's not much in the way of banking loans and banking investment. The government and the private sector both face a shortage of skilled labour and trained personnel, so trying to find employees with the right level of training and literacy is challenging. And customs regulations, so for imports and exports, are neither transparent nor consistent, so it's very difficult to understand and to deal with legally, and it's not applied consistently at all customs borders, so this can cause problems as well. And lastly, the political factors. I've only selected 4 of the steeple headings because it doesn't ask me to use all, it's just asking me to use relevant. So you don't always have to use all the steeple headings. Politically, there is weak or no rule of law in some of these tribal areas. That's the rural areas around the Hindu Kush mountain range where the country is still essentially under the control of terrorist groups. There is a very high rate of corruption. There is limited political space to express opposing political views. So if your company, your organisation or your employees are not directly in support of the government's activities, this can cause problematic for you. There's very limited freedom of expression. Links to the previous point. Much of Afghanistan's operates in a critical threat security situation, so it's at red alert constantly because of their terrorist threats. Legal framework and regulatory enforcement make it very difficult to resolve business disagreements in the country, so there is not really the legal support to clarify who's responsible for what when things go wrong, and to actually solve conflicts between businesses, between say a supplier and a company within this country. It's very unclear whose responsibilities sit where. And foreign legal persons cannot own land in Afghanistan, and actually securing a clear title to land is a very long, time-consuming and expensive process. So we have some political factors that can cause problems. Now these are the kind of things that you might expect to see in your additional materials, and you would be expected to use them in discussion about the things that Sue needs to consider when setting up her organisation, her business. So my last point is from 1.6, looking at economies of scale. So for 1.6, economies of scale, we've got the question, to what extent might Salima's decision not to outsource the production facilities, but rather to assemble the components in her own factory using cellular production methods impact her economies of scale? And here is our response. Economies of scale are the savings made on average per unit as a business grows. The most common methods of EOS are through purchasing, marketing, technology and specialist staff. As Salima is planning on producing the majority of the solar panels in-house, startup costs will likely be high. This might prevent achieving purchasing economies of scale. It is likely that an established company making solar panels in bulk for a much larger market will be able to purchase their raw materials at discount, enabling them to achieve purchasing economies of scale. Another method of achieving economies of scale is through the efficiencies gained through using automation. This is called technological EOS. Salima has decided to use cellular production, which requires staff to work in teams to assemble the solar panels. This is going to be more costly and less efficient than using machines to do the same job. Salima would have been more likely to achieve economies of scale had she opted for automation as a production method, regardless of its high startup costs, as the cost per unit to produce is much lower. And again, you could use this as an opportunity to evaluate the cellular production method, or to evaluate Salima's decision to only outsource certain components, but to keep the main production facility based in-house, based within the company. You can elaborate this point linking into sections from different chapters. So this is just a first intro and chapter 1, and subsequent videos being posted over the next couple of days will cover the next 4 chapters.